Fan games are an interesting concept. Someone has to love a fandom so much that they decide they want to create something within it. Fan games come in many shapes and forms, but the ones that interest me the most are the horror games. From Sonic to Mario, fan games exist for most franchises, and horror games creep within nearly every fandom. So let's talk about some fan games that actually scared me. Spoilers for some fan games and a jump scare warning. You have been warned, so let's begin. The Five Nights at Freddy community has made many games over the years. My favorites are the games that take the mechanics of FNAF but change the theming. That could be with new animatronics, locations, or even entirely new franchises. One game that captures this perfectly is Five Nights at Treasure Island. Here we have a FNAF game that uses Mickey Mouse, Donald, Goofy, and other Disney characters as the monstrosities you must avoid. This is one of the earliest FNAF games that I came across. It has stuck with me since my first playthrough. What might at first seem like a mashup of FNAF and Abandoned by Disney is so much more. Originally released in 2014, Five Nights at Treasure Island is a FNAF fan game that took heavy inspiration from Abandoned by Disney and the real-life closure of Treasure Island in 1999. It even features the main antagonist of the original creepypasta. Loading into the game, you're brought to this menu screen. Treasure Island appears on the top left with a distorted Mickey Mouse on the right. You can already see the inspirations being pulled from here. The screen is reminiscent of the Five Nights at Freddy's game, and the photo-negative Mickey comes right from Abandoned by Disney. Mickey is so imposing here. I'm not sure what about it, but I feel creeped out by him more than by the bear. Maybe it's my childhood attachment to Disney or the creepypasta. It could be both, but my favorite part about this screen is that you can die here. If you sit too long, Mickey jump scares you and the game shuts down. The plot of the game is that you are part of a paranormal investigation group, the Supernatural Studies Society. You are their new intern, replacing one of their members, a man named Henry, who has previously gone missing on the island. You will get calls from him on later nights, and figure out what happened to him. Working with Disney, you are permitted to stay and capture any paranormal activity found on the island. This is the premise that starts the entire game. The gameplay is very much a FNAF game. You have access to several cameras, a Mickey on the desk that squeaks, and a series of nights to survive. The main antagonist of the game is photo-negative Mickey. This is a direct inspiration from Slime Beast's Abandoned by Disney story. The design for Mickey has changed since I originally played the game though. Overall, I think he's much scarier now, but I like the simplicity of the original. Photo-negative Mickey isn't the only entity haunting you. There's also Donald's missing head, which is also filled with holes for some reason. There's this creepy version of Oswald, a headless Goofy, and my all-time favorite, Nightmare Fuel Minnie. These creatures will haunt you as you try to survive till the end. The gameplay is fairly simple, and luckily not too hard. You can use the cameras to track the entities. They have different ways of handling them, but the most efficient is to disable a camera whenever they enter the main room. This makes a noise and they are attracted to sound. Another mechanic is the ability to hide. The mechanics feel very familiar each night, but they do change and the entities also become harder with time. I got lost in the gameplay, but slowly found my rhythm around night 4. Each camera screen is chock full of Disney merch and creepiness. The decision to base the story around the real abandoned theme park of Treasure Island was a good idea as well. It brings a level of intrigue that I usually don't find in these sorts of things. I especially love seeing the mascot heads just lying around everywhere. The sound design in the game is nerve-wracking and probably my favorite part aside from the visuals. I replayed the game for footage recently and forgot how unnerving a lot of the setting is. It is absolutely nightmare fuel, especially if you're a fan of Disney. Aside from the usual FNAF gameplay, you also have cutscenes where you need to explore the facility. This is done in a similar way to the rest of the game's point-and-click nature. You'll click to move and encounter some new entities while trying to save Henry from where he's located in Pirate Cove. My favorite new entity is the Mickey Mouse suit that gets in your way. He is something that keeps me up at night. Progressing the story will lead you to figure out what happened to Henry and lead to a sequel game, one that I haven't played yet. This is one of my favorite FNAF fan games for multiple reasons. It's based on one of my favorite creepypastas, it tells an interesting story about an abandoned location, and I love the design for each entity. They all have their own horrors that keep me interested and scared. Of all the games on this list, this is the only one that isn't a fan game. Don't get me wrong, it is in a way, but it's actually considered a ROM hack since it needs a working ROM to be playable. This is B3313 for Super Mario 64. B3313 is a ROM hack that was started in 2020. It was inspired by the every copy of Super Mario 64's personalized creepypasta. The ROM hack takes the game in several unexpected directions. The most notable is the addition of new areas, levels, and the randomization of where doors lead at times. The idea of the original story is that every person who has played Super Mario 64 gets their own personalized version of the game. This means that some aspects of the game are different for each person. This story created an entire community who in turn created their own stories and entities that haunted different copies of the game. My personal favorite is the Wario apparition, which took over the internet for a little while. This ROM plays like the original Super Mario 64 in many ways. The movement is mostly the same, the objective is the same, but everything is slightly off. The triple jump now leads you to a different third jump. The gameplay is more floaty, and some movement abilities are not unlocked until you complete certain hidden objectives. There's a certain level of uneasiness the game now gives off. Before, there were certain levels that players said made them feel unnerved, but now the entire game gives off that vibe. The halls are more empty than in the original game, the sounds that Mario makes are different, and everything else just feels off. It's practically a new game. When I first started the ROM hack, I played through it how I normally would. I collected stars and explored as much as I could. It felt the same but different. That is until I found a new item. A red star can be obtained after defeating Bowser. This is when the game shifts into its true form. New areas are unlocked, long dark hallways, strange empty areas, and a foreboding that only exists in small areas of the original game. The music is a touch of classic Mario songs and remixed, dark versions of the same themes. It again adds that feeling that something just isn't quite right here. The dark hallways and abandoned locations are far from the creepiest thing you'll find here, but you need to explore to find everything else. I was exploring the castle as much as I could. While doing so, I found a room that teleports you to a black void with the eel attacking you. From what I can tell, there was no escape to be found. This was more of a jump scare than anything else. I wasn't able to escape and died to the eel. This would be the scariest thing I saw, but there was something worse. I was exploring under the castle and had this happen. I was chased and killed by the faceless Marios. This was traumatizing, but such an interesting find. I don't know if I was able to escape them, but I couldn't in my playthrough. They killed me and I was kicked back to the lobby. I died quite a few times from strange entities and monstrous creatures. That feels like the point of the hack, show you the creepy side of the game. I found out that a lot of the inspiration was pulled from the community that was formed by the Every Copy creepypasta. A lot of the things I was encountering looked very familiar to that story, from the foreboding hallway, garish music, and randomness of my exploration. The team did a great job recreating the feelings I felt while reading that story. I haven't even touched on the creepy new locations, enemies, or the amount of new content in general. There's so much more to this mod than the inspirations they took from the creepypasta. There's so much here to soak in and play through. This is something I'll need to come back to for a full video someday. Sonic has more fan games than I can count, but no matter how many I play, I'm always surprised by the creativity of the community. From the early days of EXE, there have been some excellent creations. I was planning on playing through some new games for this video, instead of touching on just the ones that I already knew I wanted to play. What I came across in my search for a game was something called Green Mountain. Green Mountain is a Sonic fan game that is a little new and a little old. It brings in ideas that we've seen before and remixes them in different ways. Firstly, the game is pretty standard. It was uploaded by an account named Green Mound Sonic. This account appeared out of nowhere and released 2 separate games, but we'll get to that in a bit. The first game that account published was Green Mountain. When you open it, you were greeted with a distorted version of Green Hill Zone. The music is different, the visuals are distorted, and Sonic has no pupils. None of this is new for a Sonic fan game. In fact, there are hundreds of other games that use these exact same elements. Here though, it just feels different. There is no blood and gore, no dead animals littering the ground, and nothing really stopping you from going to the right. You can keep going for about the whole way until you fall to your death. This Sonic game has fall damage for some reason. After running for a little while, I figured you were supposed to climb up. As the game's name implies, you are climbing a mountain. The jumps are genuinely hard to make at first, with a few trial and error jumps required. The number of times I fell to my death was more than I'd like to admit. Once you reach the top, you come face to face with this thing. It's a faceless Sonic. Well, that's not quite right. There is a void where his face should be. This void is such an evocative image. It's scarier than No Pupil Sonic, more than EXE, and more than several others I could mention. It's just not right in many ways. You don't just come face to face with this entity, you have to fight it. Now, it doesn't hurt you for some reason. You can't actually lose the fight. You just have to jump on it a certain number of times, and then it turns into goo on the ground. Your prize is then given to you. Just kidding, there is no prize. You are now trapped at the top of Green Mountain. You might think the game ends here, but no. You have to sit for a few minutes before everything starts to degrade. Sonic eventually becomes just like that thing that you just murdered. I guess to complete the cycle, as he is now trapped up there, waiting for the next Sonic to come and fight him. This was everything that was presented in the game. Of course, it wasn't the end though. The community was able to dig through the files and found a conversation between 2 people. The conversation was out of order, but with enough time, it was slowly pieced back together. Essentially, 2 unnamed people are discussing their trek up a mountain. They talk about a shovel and needing to mark a spot. There's also a mention of talking to a girl that goes unnamed in the conversation. This conversation sounds like they're burying somebody in the mountains. From the context clues we're given, it seems to be about burying a body. There isn't a whole lot more to go on aside from this photo that was pulled from the files. It's named Returnal and appears to show what looks like a body on the ground. There have been a few in the community who have stated that the body on the ground kind of looks like Sonic that we saw in the game. There is kind of a resemblance that I can see. Returnal could be referring to the body coming back to life somehow, or like they are returning to the body after they buried it for some reason. There are a few ARG elements being thrown around, but since this was uploaded this year, we'll likely not see more until a new update is released. With all that said, there was also a sequel that was found. It was released around the same time but quickly removed. Someone was able to snag it and re-upload it. The game is just called 2, and it plays similarly to the first one. This section has you descending the mountain and occasionally seeing glimpses of a shadow in front of you. You can only see it on the corner of the screen, but it's definitely there. There's such a short view of the thing that it's hard to tell exactly what you're looking at. This level has an end, which takes you to a 3rd level. Here you need to use momentum to explore by climbing upward. This level, unlike the first 2, has enemies to fight. They are typical robot enemies, but slightly different. As you attack them, they crumble a bit. Each attack makes them crumble a bit more. On attack 3, they completely crumble into a heap of metal. The interesting part about all this is the location where each enemy is found. There is a structure in the background that looks like a house. Each enemy is slowly killed by you in front of what is likely their home. This adds a whole new layer to what could be happening here. It paints a picture of a possible serial killer. Once you reach the end of the level, you are stopped in front of this sign. And the game sort of ends. The screen fades to white and this bus stop area shows up. The significance of this area hasn't been figured out yet, but it feels like the deepest meaning lies there. More text was discovered, and a story is slowly being pieced together, but there's just not much more to go on at this time. There seems to be an investigation and a mention of a boy turning 9, and some other vague details. From what I've been able to piece together, it seems like there is a pair of serial killers who also kidnapped a child. The investigation is trying to find that child and hoping they aren't dead. This could all be wrong, but I'll gladly stay up to date with the ARG and hope that more is revealed soon. I'm very invested in what we have so far. It feels reminiscent of a few other things that I enjoyed. Mostly it feels similar to Pale Luna, a creepypasta about a game that led to a treasure. The treasure was the rotting corpse of a little girl. She was found through a trial and error system in a text adventure game. This kind of gives me a similar feeling to that story, but takes it a step further. For now, this is all we've got, but I'm loving what we're seeing so far. As much as FNAF has owned the fan game community for a long time, there were games that came out that actually improved upon the initial formula. My favorite, and probably the most popular fan game in the community, is the Joy of Creation Story Mode. The Joy of Creation Story Mode took everything that I liked about the FNAF formula and innovated on it in ways that made sense. The game takes place over 5 levels, with each having its own mechanics and threats. The main cast of the first FNAF game are all present here as well, though they are different in a few ways. Starting with the story, The Joy of Creation has you playing as the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's himself, Scott Cawthon, his family, and a man named Michael. The latter shows up at Scott's house and is taken in for the night. The whole story is being relived through the memories of Scott's fictional son, Nick. The game has cutscenes that show what is happening, and this alone makes it stand out from other fan games. The cutscenes and voice acting are pretty decent, though some line deliveries are more funny than scary. I still think on a presentational basis, they did a great job. The first cutscene has Nick returning to his childhood home, and then starting to remember that night. Here it transitions into Michael showing up at home and getting invited in because he seems to need help. There are a lot of small details that tell you something is wrong with Michael, and there are several mentions to fire here as well, which comes up later in the story. This all leads to the first level of the game, the bedroom. The bedroom is where I spent most of my time in my replay of the game. This is because of something I'll be talking about later in this video. You play as Nick here, and immediately there is a voice over the baby monitor that you recognize as Michael before he introduces himself. Michael starts with the infamous "Hello, hello" from FNAF 1, and that breaks down how this is going to work. It's a rather long explanation of the mechanics, the adversaries, and the dangers you'll have to survive as a child. It takes a long time just to get to the end of the explanation phase. You're playing as Nick, and you need to fend off the 4 animatronics from FNAF. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are all present, and have different mechanics that you'll have to remember to stop them. This is where I want to get into the most important, at least to me, aspect of the Joy of Creation. The redesigns for the animatronics are terrifyingly good. Here they are called the Ignited, and they look like it. They have this burnt look to them, and it's clear that the theme of fire is heavily present in this game, both a foreshadowing and a theme. The looks of Freddy and Bonnie are my favorites, but Chica still lives rent-free in my brain with this design. The designs are great, but what's even better is the jump scare animations. The creator went the extra mile to make them feel substantially scarier than the games that were out at the time. I actually felt a panic as I got jump scared for the first time, which is something I haven't felt with a FNAF game in a while. The mechanics of the bedroom are not super hard to follow. Freddy requires you to close the curtains when he shows up at the window, and then you need to keep them closed until you hear the sound of him leaving. Chica needs you to sit up in the bed but not look at her. Bonnie knocks on the door throughout the night, but he also likes to come in after. When he does, you need to sit in the bed and not move. The The final animatronic and my least favorite is Foxy. Foxy scratches on the bed to let you know that he's approaching. Once he arrives, he can only be dealt with by pretending to sleep. These mechanics are simple to grasp, but a lot to take in during that first warning from Michael. The animatronics can also come in at 2 at a time. This makes managing them a bit hard. You can get through it with enough practice though, and it'll take a lot of strategizing as you near the end of the night. The next level takes place in the living room, and you play as Scott's fictional wife. She has to deal with 3 animatronics trying to break in on both sides of the living room and one area in the middle. This level is fun, but actually quite a bit easier than the first. Here you get to see the animatronic models way easier too. Night 3 takes place in the office, and is my favorite location. The mechanics of this room require a lot of things at once, but overall it's a fun experience. I also like the animations for flashing Freddy. I think it has such a nice level of reaction to it. Level 4 takes us to the basement, which is actually my least liked level, and finally 5 takes us to the attic. The attic plays the most like a typical FNAF game. It's a fun experience and a great way to cap off the game. The ending is something I won't spoil for those who haven't played it yet, but it's kind of what you'd expect from a FNAF game. The themes of fire, burning, and body snatching are layered nicely throughout the game as well. Incredible fan game, and well worth your time. The designs really bring the game to life, and the gameplay is fresh enough to keep you interested until the end. Now, that being said, there are a few aspects that tainted the overall experience for me. The biggest is how hard the overall game is, and how long each night takes. The nights are long, 10 minutes each, and they feel like it. Not only that, but the game is incredibly difficult. The first level alone took me about an hour to beat, with quick restarts. I kept dying to multiple animatronics attacking at once. It happens often, but the worst is any combo plus Chica. Chica doesn't kill you, but she stuns you for a long time. The stun got me killed so many times. The worst was when I was fighting off Chica, but Foxy also was ready to attack. I went down to pretend to sleep before Foxy killed me, but Chica was still active, so she stunned me the second I went down, and then Foxy killed me. It was rough, but worth getting through. The rest of the levels are much easier to manage, but still at a steep learning curve. This is still one of the better FNAF fan games I've played, and one I've returned to more than the main series games. A few years ago, I was on a Sonic kick. I played through all the 2D games and decided to run down the fan game rabbit hole. I played most of those and found some Sonic.exe games to play also. While playing through those, I came upon a game that changed my perception of the horror Sonic fan game. I found Sonic Editable ROM. Sonic Editable ROM, or Sonic EYX to some, is my favorite Sonic.exe game. Now, calling it an EXE game is kind of a disservice to how outstanding the game is, but it works for getting the point across. I already talked about this game heavily in a prior video, but I want to come back to the game with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. Sonic Editable ROM feels like a dismantling of the EXE formula. It takes a lot of what works in those games and edits them down to a much more manageable and disturbing level. There are aspects of the game that feel very much like EXE, but there are other parts that differentiate it and make it so much better as a whole package. The game starts with this one-eyed creature that looks like Sonic staring at you from the void. Then a scene plays that warns you about what you just found. It doesn't take long before the creepiness begins. I'll just play it for you. A familiar setting is presented afterward. We have Tails and Green Hill Zone, just like in every EXE game. You move to the right and wait for something to happen. As you move that way, there's a quick screen static, and then you run into this long-armed creature. It quickly turns into normal classic Sonic and runs in the opposite direction. If you continue to the right, you'll get slowed by this guy. Another guy appears and laughs at you. This version of Sonic looks like EXE with a few modifications. Even on my second playthrough, I'm still not sure who this is supposed to be. With only one option, we head left. This leads to some creepy screens and eventually a total deconstruct of Tails. He changes over time, losing his eyes and being surrounded by darkness before he finally shuts his eyes. A counter begins until this thing flies at Tails, and the screen flashes to white before the game crashes. Restarting the game, you are met with Knuckles. He berates the player for enjoying these kind of games, for wanting to see them suffer over and over again. Each new phrase brings a new change to Knuckles. He goes from a slightly mad version of the character into a monstrosity that fits in with the other creations of this world. This breakdown of tropes of the Sonic.exe formula, as well as directly addressing the fanbase of said games, feels like a turning point for the genre. There's a self-awareness to the whole ordeal that paints us as the bad guys. Somehow we've created this monster, the one that we'll see later as Knuckles warns us. He is coming now. No hope spreads across the screen, and a window error appears on the screen. This is a common tactic used in this game. It uses factors related to our computer to break the fourth wall. In this case, it claims that the game has failed to log into your internet connection. Whatever is trapped in the ROM is trying to get out. Another crash and another reboot brings us to a sprite swap of the original three. Sonic, Tails, and Eggman get redesigns. Before we can move on to that, though, we have to watch Ray the Flying Squirrel be ripped apart by Sonic EYX. A final screen cuts us back to the main game. Here we see the new world created for the game, and a new Sonic to match. As he walks away, EYX can be seen momentarily. As we progress, we see Metal Sonic in the sky flying by. This level has a relaxed vibe to it that could make for an excellent non-horror project. The music is calming and the visuals are so well done. The game has a few hidden areas and secrets to find. The one that I rarely see anyone talking about is the underwater cave. Here you'll run into this twisted version of Tails. There's also no escape when you find him. The only option I found was to die, which closes the game. If you try and go back down there, no one will be present this time. Once you've gotten far enough in this level, part of the map will delete from beneath Sonic as he falls into some water. He floats there while these eyes watch from behind. This lasts momentarily before he is freed again. It doesn't last for long as Sonic is then thrown into a world where he is told to run. This thing cannot be outrun though. Doing so always ends on this screen, where we are taunted by EYX, a dead-looking Knuckles, and Tails. Repeated messages will pop up saying that they want to use your webcam. These fail each time. We come back to a world shrouded in darkness and must make our way to the end of the stage again. Doing so frees us, but only momentarily. Near the end, Sonic stares with no pupils directly into the camera. This image is unnerving and it lasts for a while. Sonic falls off the screen and we're jump scared by EYX again. Starting the second stage, we only get a few minutes of reprieve before something catches Sonic's eye in the distance. It's the stage end capsule. There's also a split-second image of a character. This, I've been told, changes on each playthrough. I saw Knuckles on this one, but I'm sure I saw the Tails creature before. They only appear briefly before the camera goes back to Sonic. Before you can really start playing, Metal Sonic knocks you over to the capsule with Eggman in tow. He laughs at you until EYX appears from behind a rock and murders him, right in front of you. The screen tears and warps as the sounds of a scream and flesh-tearing play. The game crashes once more. The finale is in sight. Rebooting brings you to a new world. Not new entirely though. We've seen it once before. This is where Ray was murdered by EYX. Now you have control of Tails, who first appears with no pupils and red streaks down his face. You can't run, you can't jump, and you can't escape. You have to move to the right until he appears. Firstly, we see Ray with no eyes. Somehow not entirely dead yet. He is pulled away by a hand, so maybe he was dead and instead being used like a puppet. Getting to the end of the road, you'll finally come face to face with EYX. He appears to be looming over something, a dismembered body. It looks like Tails. No, it is Tails. Not the one we're controlling, but a different Tails. There's a moment where EYX stops moving. Then he turns to Tails and flashes at him in an instant. The game cuts to a screen with fire to accentuate it. This is where it ends, with the coming soon screen. In the background is a mutation of Amy, with blood dripping down her face. This is effectively where the game ends for now, with a promise of more horror on the way. This game has stuck with me since I played through it the first time. The designs for the corrupt versions of Sonic and Tails are nightmare-inducing. The Tails one in particular is horrific. Long-limbed horror creations just seem to scare me the most. I enjoyed the dismantling of Sonic.exe tropes, not just calling them out, but also us being called out for enjoying them. They are repurposed in the most gruesome of ways for this game. It's something I think works well for this genre. I can't wait for more to be added.